Hello and welcome back to the Film Odyssey Podcast. My name is Sal Cicero,
And I'm Dan Dubon.
and today we will be discussing what our most anticipated movies of 2024 are.
Yeah, it's we're at that time of year again where as we're recording this, it's December 31st of 2023.
But by the time it's uploaded, it'll be 2024, so it is pretty much 2024. It
Yeah.
definitely seems like it's going to be very different from 2023, especially with the quality, I feel. You have a lot more movies that you are anticipating on your list than I
Yeah, I
do.
do.
A lot more. We're gonna start with Dan's list first with his few.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to run through some of these as fast as possible because I have a lot more than you. Starting off for me is Juror Number Two. Now, this is going to
Uh,
be Clint Eastwood's next movie, probably his last, honestly, because he's getting up there in age. The plot for this is very interesting. It says it follows a family man, Justin Kemp, who, while serving as a juror in a high-profile murder trial, he finds himself struggling with a moral dilemma. So I think the plot is very interesting. Nicholas Hoult is playing the main character here. Also stars J.K. Simmons, Toni Collette. Next movie I'm anticipating for next year is Nosferatu.
mm,
This is, of course, Robert Eggers, his next movie that's highly anticipated. Of course, it stars Willem Dafoe, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Nicholas Hoult again, Bill Skarsgård, and Lily Rose Depp. And this is a remake of the 1922 film. If you've seen any of Robert Eggers' movies, I think you'd also be highly anticipating this. He's definitely one of the most unique directors working today. This doesn't release until next Christmas, which is very far away. Next movie on my list is Megalopolis. This is, of course, going to be Francis Ford Coppola's first movie in damn near like a decade, I think, or maybe even more. Might potentially be his last. He's been trying to get this movie made since like the 1980s, which is kind of insane. And he finally got the movie made. Apparently, this movie has been compared to like Julius Caesar and stuff like Blade Runner, which is very interesting for me because Coppola's never really done the sci-fi genre before. So I think this could be very interesting. It has potential to be on par with Coppola's other movies, like of course Apocalypse Now, the Godfather movies. And I hope it is because this might honestly potentially be the last movie of his career. And I hope he could go out with a high note. Next for me is The Wolfman, going to be directed by Lee Winnell, who did Upgrade and The Invisible Man, if you saw those movies or were fans of them. Originally, this was supposed to star Ryan Gosling, but he dropped out. And now it's going to star Christopher Abbott, who he was in Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor movie, as well as Poor Things most recently. I'm looking forward to this because I was a fan of both Upgrade and The Invisible Man, and I like Winnell as a director, and I want to see what he could do with this.
cool.
Next for me is the Crow reboot. I feel like this is the one movie on my list where it could go terribly bad. Like you know how you put Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania on your list and you regretted it. Out of all these movies, I feel like this is the one wild card because doing a reboot of The Crow, which a lot of people hold in high regard, is a very risky thing. Rupert Sanders, who directed Snow White and the Huntsman and Ghost in the Shell, is doing this. I don't really know how to feel about that, but again, it stars Bill Skarsgård, and I think he's quickly becoming one of the most interesting actors working today. And I want to see if he could fill the shoes that Brendan Lee did in this movie. Next up is Wolves. This is going to be a Apple TV Plus movie, but I think it's getting a theatrical release by Sony next fall. And this is actually directed by John Watts, who did the most recent Spider-Man trilogy, and it stars Brad Pitt and George Clooney. I'm really intrigued to see what Watts can do outside of like a big blockbuster movie. Next up for me is Deadpool 3. Now, of course, this is highly anticipated by almost everyone for next year. I'm kind of apprehensive on it because I'm not a huge fan of Sean Levy as a director, although I am curious to kind of see Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman on screen together here. It's going to be the first R-rated movie in the MCU, so that should be interesting. I'm anticipating it, but it's not like number one on my list for, I think, obvious reasons. Next up for me is The Bike Riders. Now, this movie was originally supposed to come out like this month, but then it got delayed because Disney didn't want to distribute it anymore. So then Focus Features bought it, and now they're going to distribute it in June of next year. year. And based on the trailer, this is kind of my type of movie, and I'm intrigued by it. I don't know if it's going to be like phenomenal, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. This is going to be my last one before we could, alternate. Is going to be Havoc, Gareth Evans' next movie. Of course, for those who don't know, he did the two Raid movies, which are highly regarded as like the best action movies ever made. Stars Tom Hardy, and this is going to be a Netflix movie, so that kind of makes me a little bit nervous. But Gareth Evans, I think he's a good enough director, and who doesn't want to see Tom Hardy in like a Raid style action movie? So I guess we should start with you, Sal, now.
My number 8 most anticipated movie of 2024 goes to Beetlejuice 2. I like Tim Burton a lot. He directed probably one of my favorite movies of all time, which is the 1989 Batman film, which is also a
Yeah,
childhood classic for me. And I like his style. His vision is amazing. It's very cinematic and weird. Beetlejuice, though, I think is probably a classic from him. Probably his most classic film aside from Edward Scissorhands.
probably.
We
Yeah.
and we have Michael Keaton reprising his role as Beetlejuice. And we also have newcomer Jenna Ortega. We have Riona Ryder, who was in the original, Captain O'Hara. And this time around, we got Willem Dafoe and Monica Bellucci. So it's going to be
Interesting.
it's a very interesting cast.
Yeah, that movie certainly intrigues me, not enough that I'll put it on like my most anticipated list, just
Okay.
because like Tim Burton's last movie I think was Dumbo in 2019, and
Well, that was
that
Disney. This
wasn't.
isn't Disney.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm hoping he could kind of have a comeback with Beetlejuice too, hopefully.
True. Yeah.
So my number 8 most anticipated for next year is going to be Drive Away Dolls. This was originally supposed to release like I think it back in September, but the strikes delayed it to end of February. I'm very interested in this just by the trailer alone because it's kind of giving that sort of classic Coen crime comedy style to it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by this movie.
Number 7 for me is going to be Terrifier 3, the ultra violent killer clown movie, Art the Clown. The sequel was amazing, in my opinion. A lot of people found it difficult to watch, which I could understand. I'm excited for the third film. Apparently, it got dropped by its distributors because of one opening scene, I believe that was also in the teaser trailer, that was pushing the limit. So it has no distributor at the moment. But I'm excited to see what they're going for with this third film. It's got the same actors from the sequel reprising their roles again. I'm interested in seeing what they've got for us this time.
My number 7 most anticipated for next year is Mickey 17.
Mm.
Now, this is going to be, of course, Bong Joon-ho's follow-up to 2019's Parasite, which got huge acclaim and was big during the Academy Awards that year. And this is going to star Robert Pattinson, Mark Ruffalo, Stephen Ewan, Toni Collette. There's not really a plot synopsis for this yet. I know it's going to sort of be like a sci-fi movie. So Bong Joon-ho doing like a straight up sci-fi movie with Pattinson, like I'm on board day one, like honestly.
Number 6 on my most anticipated list, and this one's probably gonna be controversial, but is Joker Folie à Deux. Say whatever you want about the first film. I thought the first film was pretty good. I mean, my appreciation for it got lower and lower after multiple viewings, I will say, but I am interested in seeing how Todd Phillips is going to make it the sequel. A lot of people were not wanting a sequel. I sure know I wasn't really asking for a sequel as well, but the fact that it's going to be like a partial musical and we have Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn, just the fact that this movie is happening in general. I don't know. I'm interested in seeing how this is going to turn out to be.
So my number 6 most anticipated next year is going to be Ballerina. This is going to be the first theatrical John Wick spin-off movie. Apparently the plot's supposed to take place in between chapter 2 and 3, which means Keanu Reeves will probably have a supporting or cameo role in this movie. So that's interesting. Of course, this stars Ana de Armas. This would be higher on my list. The only thing that's holding this movie back for me is Chad Stahelski isn't directing it, which I think is a big missed opportunity in my opinion. If he was directing this, I feel like I'd have a lot more anticipation for this. Len Wiseman is directing, and he's not what I would call like a great action director, but who knows? Maybe he'll surprise the world with this movie.
Number 5 for me is going to be Shelby Oaks. Now,
Wow, that's okay.
yeah. Now, if you're not familiar with former YouTube critic Chris Stuckman, who's now a filmmaker, he is making his his official directorial debut with Shelby Oaks, which is a horror film about paranormal investigators who search for a woman who went missing. I'm excited to see what he will do with this. I mean, you could tell if you watch his YouTube videos or if you're familiar with him or have been a long time subscriber, you know that he loves horror movies and wants a lot from the genre and expects a lot. So I'm excited to see how he's going to take this approach.
I feel like this is extremely risky for him
Yeah,
because if this gets received poorly or it's not that great, he's never going to hear the end of it. But, however, if he manages to make like a great little horror movie and surprise a bunch of people, critics, people who've been following him for a long period of time, he could potentially actually start, a directing career, which is even more exciting.
true. And I
So,
mean, look at Danny and Michael Filippo with their film Talk to Me that came out earlier this year. I mean, I almost passed out watching that movie.
my number five most anticipated movie of 2024 is going to be The Fall Guy. Now,
Okay.
this is, of course, going to be David Leitch's next movie following Bullet Train, and it stars Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. Based on the trailer, it kind of looks like he's channeling both his character from Drive and his comedic performance from The Nice Guys combined in one character. That alone has me interested, and of course, like Ryan Gosling is one of my favorite actors, so like anything he does, I'm probably going to go see it.
Number four for me is going to be Mickey 17. As you all heard from Dan, written and directed by Bong Joon-ho and stars Robert Pattinson in the lead role. Also stars Mark Ruffalo and Steven Yeun and Toni Collette. I'm
Yeah.
excited to see how this is going to be. It's supposed to be a science fiction drama, apparently. I'm excited to see
Yeah.
how this is going to be.
My number four most anticipated movie of 2024 is going to be Joker, Folie à Deux. This movie, I feel like, could go one of two ways. It could be sort of be the inferior sequel route, or it could be surprisingly great and even better than the first movie, which I'm hoping this movie will be. Academy Award winner Joaquin Phoenix reprises his role here, and Lady Gaga is supposed to play Harley Quinn, which is really fascinating to me to
Yeah.
see her doing a role like this. And every set photo that's released from this movie, it's got me more and more intrigued by this movie and what the actual plot is going to be. Because we've heard it's going to be like a musical, but we know that Todd Phillips is it just going to make a straight up musical movie? There's going to be a lot darker elements to this, probably underneath the surface.
Number three for me is going to be Nosferatu, the new film that's written and directed by Robert Eggers. And this is the remake of the 1922 film with the same title. And it stars Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok, which apparently he's supposed to be unrecognizable in the role. It seems like Robert Eggers' passion project because this movie has been talked about for years, and Robert Eggers has been set to make this film, I think, since The Lighthouse. Like there were talks
Yeah.
about him making this film, but then he did The Northman after, and so now he's doing Nosferatu. I do feel that having it released on Christmas Day is just bizarre. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't make any
I agree.
sense, but maybe it's just to get like more hype and make it worth the wait.
My number three most anticipated of 2024 is actually going to be Hitman, Richard Linklater's next movie. Yeah, Richard Linklater is one of those veteran directors. He, of course, did like Dazed and Confused, the Before trilogy, Boyhood, which I really loved. This premiered at TIFF this fall, and it got like a great reaction from everyone. And the only unfortunate thing about this is that Netflix picked up the rights for it. So, they're going to be the distributor for this sometime next year, which is unfortunate because I think this movie would have benefited a lot more if it got a theatrical release, but I'm still anticipating this movie regardless.
My number two most anticipated movie of 2024 is going to be Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. I've been wanting a sequel or at least some type of spin-off to Mad Max Fury Road since I first saw Fury Road. Having George Miller back directing and writing with his co-writer of Fury Road, Nico Lefteris. Probably pronounced that name wrong. If I did, apologies. But it seems like it's gonna be really good. We have Anya Taylor-Joy as the young Furiosa, and we're gonna get Chris Hemsworth playing the villain. And from what I've seen from the trailers, it seems like he's going to really like take his acting up a notch. It's got the same exact energy and mayhem as the 2015 film, if not probably more, since this is now a much bigger film and it's more recent. And I'm hoping it does everything to please its fans.
I agree. My number two for next year is also Furiosa. Again, I agree with everything you said. I'm not a huge fan of prequels, but I'm really intrigued by this movie and where it's going to go. Anya Taylor-Joy in this role that Charlize Theron played in the 2015 movie is very interesting to me, and I want to see how she brings a younger version of this character to life. And Chris Hemsworth as a villain is just very interesting casting.
So, my number one most anticipated movie of 2024 is Megalopolis, which
Okay.
is written and directed by Francis Ford Coppola and is his passion project, as Dan said. He has been working on this film since the 1980s, early 1980s, and is supposed to be a dystopian kind of science fiction drama. The plot for it says an architect wants to rebuild New York City as a utopia following a devastating disaster. That sounds really interesting, and given that this is his passion project, I really wonder what Coppola could be cooking up for us
Yeah.
because the man is just a genius. He's made The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, which are widely considered one of, if not the best films ever made.
Yeah.
People love those movies even to this day, and I love The Godfather. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And given that Francis Ford Coppola has not made a movie in years, and he is coming back, I really am just so excited that that is happening.
My number one most anticipated for next year is Doom Part 2. This was supposed to release this year, and if it did, it probably would be my top 10 for this year, but because of the strikes, it got delayed to March. So, yeah, I didn't love the first Doom, but I liked it enough to want to see how the story continues. I know some people disagree, but I think Denis Villeneuve is one of the best directors working today. And yeah, I mean, the cast for this is insane. The trailers that we've gotten have looked great, and I just can't wait for this movie to release so I could see it in IMAX. Yeah, 2024 is looking like a very interesting year, I'll say. Hard to say if it's going to be great or not yet. I think it's a little bit too early. Compared to this year, it's definitely looking very interesting. There's a lot of movies where it's like, will this be great? Will this be terrible? Really hard to tell.
But yeah, thank you all for watching. Definitely tell us what you think, and we'll be back.